I am flying solo. I'm the only marketer. So going from working in a marketing org with 500 people down to one, there was a lot of upskilling I needed to do quickly. For me, what I thought was really high impact was having consistent brand tone of voice. And as we all know in marketing, people go off brand.
It's such an interesting time where marketers can jump in and build any tools that they need.
As you can see, I could set up a project in less than 5 minutes. Already I can see these are so much shorter. They've halved the length of these subheadings, which is in line with what I was asking for.
The model can just start to figure this out for you. If you put the energy in up front to refine those instructions properly, then you'll get better results consistently. Think of this Claude project as junior employee who has a load of potential, but they need to be given the information about what your business does, what your customers care about.
Start with a key pain point. What is something that is repetitive and tedious and takes a lot of your time? A lot of the value is from small, quick wins, compounding with the AI.
Welcome to the first ever episode of the Intelligent Growth Podcast. I'm Will Mulholland on a mission to help marketers turn AI into a valuable team member. I see most marketers using AI, but barely scratching the surface. The teams that are actually getting results aren't using different tools. They're onboarding AI properly, like a new hire with a load of potential. That's what I want to help you do. Stop redoing the same work over and over again. Just build something like a template, a workflow, or a system that you and your team can just run with. This show shows you how. Today, Charlotte Norman from Adora walks through building a brand tone of voice system in Claude. Charlotte currently runs marketing at Adora completely solo, what normally would take a full team. Before Adora, she built product marketing at Canva from scratch and used AI to turn over 1 million pieces of user feedback into product roadmaps. Today, you'll see her screen, watch her build step by step, and you can copy exactly how she does it for your own team. Let's get into it. Great to have Charlotte on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Will. So good to be here.
So really excited to see what you're going to show us today. But first, I just wanted to understand a bit more about how you're using AI for marketing. So why don't you get started by sharing 3 ways that you're using AI to get your marketing work done?
Yeah, so at Adora, as you mentioned in the intro, I am flying solo. I'm the only marketer. So going from working in a marketing org with 500 people down to one, there was a lot of upskilling I needed to do quickly. And also I needed to find platforms, tools, and systems that would help me deliver work at a better pace, I guess, and over a broad range of different marketing areas. I've had my fair share of failures, to be totally transparent. You have to test and learn with AI. But there's 3 areas that I'm mainly using AI at the moment, which are working really well. The first one is using AI agents to scrape content on LinkedIn and social that's relevant to our ICP audience and understand the engagement patterns and suggest content ideas for us. The second one, which has been a big area of experimentation, but I've started to get it working well, is just lead qualification and leveraging AI enrichment, insights, understanding the user profile, company profile, and type of product attached to that to qualify who would be a good fit for our product, Adora. So that's the second area. And then the third area has been a really fun one, actually, which is AI UX prototyping and using Figma Make to prototype new features and new ideas that we could have for within the product based on customer feedback. So this is really building the bridge between sort of our sales and customer feedback and the product development process. And I've prototyped actually quite a few different ideas, and one of them was shipped. It was a full circle moment, and our users are now engaging with a design that I created, which I never thought would happen. But it's pretty cool to see that you can now do that with AI. That's something I never ever would have thought I'd be able to do in the past.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time where marketers can jump in and build any tools that they need, or they can even jump in and run experiments within the product. People's roles are starting to merge a bit more, where your expertise can be applied across so many different areas and you can actually follow that full life cycle. So yeah, I'd love to understand a bit more about the lead generation system. Me through how that worked compared to how you used to do it before using AI.
Yeah, so for context, currently Adora is a journey mapping platform that overlays user insights and analytics over all of your journey maps mapped for you. And so that's a new piece of technology, and we've come out of stealth this year. But because of that, we're still in a waitlist mode. So we're sort of in an early beta phase. And so people come in on the waitlist, every day we have people coming in on the waitlist. And I need to triage those people to see if we do immediate outreach because they would fit our beta requirements. And they would be a great partner for us to learn and grow. And we think we could add real value to them. Or there's people that come in on the wait list and they may not be 100% the right fit or the right industry or type of product that we're going after right now. And therefore, I want to just keep them in a nurture cycle until we launch more broadly. So traditionally, what I would do is honestly manually analyze all of this. I would go onto the person's LinkedIn. I would analyze their role. Do they have decision-making power? I would look at the use case they shared on the wait list. I would mentally analyze if I thought that was aligned with what the product offers within Adora. And then I would go to the company page, the company website of that person and see if their product that they have, because we sell to SaaS products primarily, see if their product setup would be conducive and high value for partnership with Adora, because we're really great at tracking linear journeys. And so I need to make sure that that product experience has onboarding flows, sign-up modals, upgrade paths, and things like that. So that's how I used to do it. Now what I do is I will leverage Apollo enrichment to give me insights about the seniority of the person, if they could be a decision maker. And to also, I've used some AI enrichment fields in HubSpot, which actually now just tell me if it's a product fit. So if they have a self-serve sign up, if they've got an onboarding flow, the AI HubSpot enrichment now qualifies that for me, and I can very quickly qualify that person without the manual analysis. So Apollo and HubSpot talk together and they help score the lead for me.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you can use it to link up different systems and they can talk to each other much more effectively, and you can surface the data at the right time. I think that's a really great use case. One of the things that I think you do really well is bring structure to how you do marketing and how you're using your AI tools. And that's why I wanted to bring you onto the show. So I'd love if you could pull up your screen and show us how you get Claude or the tools that you use to actually follow your brand strategy. I'd love to see that in action.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk a little bit what I'm going to show everyone today. When I was thinking about what would be high impact for marketers at orgs of, where there's one person like myself or up to orgs of hundreds of people, for me, what I thought was really high impact was having consistent brand tone of voice. And this is something that I have struggled with in the past, always fishing around, trying to find the Confluence or Notion page that has the tone of voice guidelines, trying to find the out-of-date brand guidelines deck, and then trying to use the information in that to align it with the messaging that I've created, whether that be positioning, copy for an email, trying to bring all those things together in my own mind to see if it's on brand or off brand. And as we all know in marketing, people go off brand. But, we've all looked at the sales deck, love the sales teams, obviously, but it's way off brand. Like, it's language that we wouldn't use to talk about certain features. And so I think one of the benefits of AI now is that we can set up systems that help create more guardrails for how we produce content and making sure that everyone is writing in the same style that aligns with your brand. So today I'm going to walk through how you can set up a tone of voice brand project within Claude that everyone on your team can have access to. And you can use this as a writing assistant. Now, I want to put emphasis on the word assistant because I actually think the best writing comes from you writing it yourself with your strategic knowledge of the market, landscape, etc. And then having the AI, Claude, act as an editor for you. So I just want to lean on that idea of we use this as an assistant to help steer and guide and edit our work, but not net new write our work per se. That would be my recommendation. So Before we dive in, I'm just going to highlight why I've chosen Claude. I've been testing different platforms for this, primarily ChatGPT and Claude. And there are many things that ChatGPT is great for. But when it comes to writing and staying on brand with your tone of voice, I found Claude was better at writing. It was less verbose, it was more in line with my tone of voice. And I felt like I could trust Claude a little bit more with the suggestions it was going to share with me, just based on those things. So that's what I'm going to dive into today, is setting this up in Claude. The Claude Project functionality is available on a paid plan. I do want to make note of that, but I do really think it's high value. And if you have a corporate team account, you will have access to these projects. So you can dive into this functionality and share it with your team.
Quickly ask Charlotte, what is the advantage over a paid account to using a free account for people who don't know with Claude?
The primary benefits that I've found is setting up the project. So setting up these, what you could call workspaces, that allow you to store knowledge of your company, your projects that you're working on, so that Claude can give you better recommendations. So you can use projects for so much more than just a brand tone of voice. You could use them for things like a competitive intelligence hub. You could upload all of your competitive intelligence into a specific project and use that as a market analysis thought partner. You could set up a campaign specific project if you had a specific messaging that you were going to use for an upcoming campaign and you wanted everyone on the campaign team to use that. Another great one that I've got here you can see is a go-to-market thought partner. So I have uploaded go-to-market playbooks from world-leading companies in here, and I use this to stress test my own ideas. You can also see in here I've got tone of voice projects for different tones of voice of different leadership people within the company, as well as my company's tone of voice project. But I will actually go through walking through creating that today. So that's one of the main benefits. The other main benefit is that you can share everything with your team if you choose to share it with it. And your model processing seems to be a lot faster if you're on the paid version.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let's show everyone how it's done and why Claude's better.
All right, let's dive in. So what you'll do is go back to the homepage. You'll come into your project section. And what we want to do here is we want to create a new project. Let's give it a name that is really explanatory. So when everyone sees this name, they know exactly what it is. So I'll call it, for the sake of this, brand tone of voice assistant. And then you can describe an overview of what this is to help people know exactly what the project is, so that then they know how they can use this. I've written one before, so just sharing that this project helps you create content that sounds on brand. It's clear, empowering, and curiosity driven, which is in line with our brand values. It gives people guidance on how they can use it, so they could upload draft content and they will get feedback on the guidelines. So feedback on their content in line with the guidelines, and it will help refine your messaging as well. So you can just write that little blurb there so people know what you're creating, and then make sure that you click share with everyone in your organization so they can have access to this. So that's step one, creating the project. So far, pretty easy. Now, the next step of the process is really where the value comes in my opinion, and that is setting up the instructions and setting up the files. So what are instructions? The instructions are you giving guidance to Claude on how you want them to steer the output that they're giving you and how you want Claude to interact with you. So what I recommend here is actually giving a high-level synopsis of your brand tone of voice within the instructions, so that those parameters and guardrails are on every chat that is happening within this project. So things that I typically include in my instructions are an overview of what I expect this project to be. So in this instance, I have said that Claude is a communication assistant for Adora, our AI journey mapping startup, and your role is to help create and steer content that aligns with Adora's brand, voice, and values. What I've then included below are core brand principles. So what our brand principles are and how that applies to copy, writing guidelines of what to do and not to do in line with our brand tone of voice, clear examples of what to avoid. I think that's really crucial. AI cannot read our minds, so we need to be very clear on what we like and what we dislike to help refine this project. And then I've also included formatting guidelines for different types of content, whether it's social media, email, leadership content, internal communications versus website copy, how Claude should generate the content and edit the content in line with that. I've prepared the instructions earlier, but hopefully those guidelines help you understand what you can put in here. And just to give you context, don't think you're putting too much necessarily. I believe that you can put up to even 3,000 words, maybe even more. You can write a lot in here. And actually, the more content you have in here, the better your output will be. And that's the same for prompting. We've all learnt this. You can't write a one-sentence prompt and hope for the best. The more context, the more detail about what you're wanting, the more information that Claude has, the better it will be. And the same goes for these instructions.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that approach. It's really the trial and error piece is important, but I think using the model to help you go through that trial and error more quickly is very helpful. Yeah, you can upload a bunch of different documents as much as the project will allow, and then you can use that to understand use cases, understand what this data could be used for, and help it to structure its own custom instructions. So if you upload a bunch of files, then you can ask Claude, hey, I've got these files, I want to use it for this. Can you map out my custom instructions so that it knows which documents to use when? And then you can use that as the basis, which you can edit back and forth. So I think, yeah, we're at a really interesting time where the model can just start to figure this out for you. It can become a compounding effect where if you put the energy in up front to refine those instructions properly, then you'll get better results consistently. And even coming off the back of chats that have worked well or haven't worked well, you can use that to ask the model, say, all the edits that I made during this session, can you give me recommendations on how I can update my custom instructions so that we get this more consistently? But yeah, would love to see how you've used it and how you set it up.
Yeah, I +1 to everything you just said there. And honestly, when I'm in doubt of how to set something up or how to refine it better, just ask Claude. Ask Claude to help steer you. We now have the world's knowledge aggregated for us at our fingertips in these models. Just ask it and see what it says and steer from there. And that will help you feel less daunted about making these projects, and you can run fast at it and test and learn. Okay, so we're in the project. We've set up the instructions. The next piece of the puzzle is uploading files. Now, this is one of the really great pieces of the project's functionality, is that you can upload so many different files into here. Things like your brand guidelines, tone of voice examples, email examples, your website. You can upload all of that into there, telling it in the instructions that these are examples of great content. And this is our brand tone of voice, and it will use them as knowledge to help steer the output of what it will deliver to you. So what you can do is upload some content. So I'm going to upload our brand tone of voice just for the purposes of this. And I'm also going to upload the homepage of our website. And I want this just to be memory, I guess, that's stored so that it refers back to these. Now that I've got these here, that essentially is the setup for now. And what I recommend people doing is setting this up and then starting to test the prompt. So what you want to do is test the outputs that you're getting from the project and test it in comparison to the regular Claude, because then you'll start to see how it's applied your project intelligence versus the regular Claude outputs. So let's go back to the regular chat. And what I want to test here is I've written a prompt about creating an H1 header and some subheading copy for a new feature that I'm launching called frustration signals. I'm just going to pop it into the regular Claude and see what spits out. It's given me a few different options, which riffed off my original one. So I wrote quite a verbose, and that was intentionally. This is not good positioning. Just I want to make that clear. This is for the purposes of this demo. And then it started to give me some different angles for how I could look at this. So what I would say is I personally hate the dashes because for me, that's a dead giveaway that AI wrote it. This is the regular Claude, just bear in mind. This is probably a little bit too long. This one, it's a bit verbose. It doesn't really get to the crux of it. Another thing I really dislike, and that's something that's in my tone of voice guidelines, is that I don't like long, comma-laden, dash-laden sentences. I want things that are short and easy to understand. So whilst these are good suggestions, I can tell that this is not in line with my brand guidelines. Based on those things of the dashes, the long sentences, it's verbose. It's also not very value-led, which is something that I put in my tone of voice. And it doesn't really encompass my company values, which is really making things accessible and easy to understand for anyone. So now let's test it in our project. So I'm going to copy the same prompt. So already I can see these are so much shorter. Like they've halved the length of these subheadings, which is in line with what I was asking for. So they're a lot punchier. You can see there's no dashes within here. There's none of these long undulating sentences. My other thing that I told it to do was to make H1s like really punchy and sharp, short and sharp. Do I think these are the best H1s? Not necessarily, but I think that it's given me a few different angles and ideas for how I could refine my own copy. And something like this one, automatic monitoring across every screen and journey, fix issues before you snowball. It does explain it in an accessible and easy to understand way, riffing off this long-winded piece of content that I gave it. So here I can start to see it has applied my brand guidelines to a degree. And what I would recommend for people is to keep testing and iterating and finding where it doesn't sound like you. So if you see something like, for me, this is a bit too long, I can give it feedback in the instructions to make sure that these H1 headings are shorter and that we're really concise and clear with language. We're not too verbose in trying to explain things. So this would be one of many experiments I would ask you to iterate on to help get the brand tone of voice project into a place where you're really happy with the outputs and feel like they are actually a really valuable writing assistant.
Yeah, the approach is add as much as you can, and then also over time, once you figure out what's working and what's not, make sure that you're trimming out the things that are out of date, or maybe you've changed your tone of voice or the types of content that you're creating. So those examples that you're sharing are going to shape what comes out, because the model is really good at replicating stuff that it's given. So in your prompts, in your instructions, in the documents that you're adding, examples of what good looks like is going to help you the most. I think what a lot of people have trouble with is that it creates something new and different
Yes.
every time. But by putting this structure in, by giving it the right documents to draw on and the right instructions, you can actually start to get it to churn out more of what you need and less of what is just completely off when you just, because most people just go straight into ChatGPT or Claude and try to get what they want done without giving that background information and all of that context. And another thing that I've been finding really useful is also using meeting recordings as a really great data source. So if you're having meetings with stakeholders to understand feedback around what's right in the tone of voice, what's wrong, or helping you to manage projects where people are mentioning deadlines, or having that in a Google Doc that is fed into and included in the project that is continually updated, or you can even set up integrations using Claude MCPs, which is something we can talk about as well. And this means that you always have the latest information and within the project so that you can use it as the thinking partner that has all of that context versus needing to start fresh every time and explain it all.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you were saying there. And that the meeting analysis is a really valuable tool for those who are in sort of B2B marketing or a go-to-market function. You could create a project in Claude and upload all of your sales calls in there and get it to analyze these calls to be like, what are the top objections? Where are people not understanding the product? What actually helps close deals? And what demo structure, what value props are helping close deals, what competitors are being called out. Like, they are great utilizations for this project functionality. Like, you can really start to analyze and optimize your marketing strategy with the assistance of these Claude projects.
Think of this Claude project as a junior employee who has a load of potential and has all of the world's knowledge when it comes to the internet, but they need to be given the tools, the data, the information about what your business does, what your customers care about, the processes that you're using. And once they have all of that, then they actually start to become much more useful, and they start becoming someone that can actually be managed and work with. And it becomes more of a collaboration where when you're talking to the model back and forth, considering it as a strange human, but one that needs all of the context to actually do the job properly, because you wouldn't walk in and say, I need you to write messaging in my tone of voice, slap it on an intern's desk and expect them to bring something back that's exactly on tone of voice if you hadn't given the proper guidelines to do that. So, I mean, for me, it feels strange to talk to model as if it is a human, but it gives me a framework to understand how to collaborate with it. And it helps me get less frustrated when it doesn't get it right, because I've realized that I just haven't given it all of the context I should have.
Definitely. Love the analogy of sort of the intern, someone who has all this abundance of potential, but you need to coach, mentor, and guide that potential into something that's really valuable for you. And so putting that upfront effort of guiding through the instructions, through the files, doing tests, iterating the instructions or files off the back of that, doing some rounds of that testing and continuously testing over time as things evolve will just make your output so much higher quality and so much more valuable for you and your team. So it's worthwhile testing. But as you can see, I could set up a project in less than 5 minutes. But it's about getting to that point of feeling really like you trust the project, and that comes with nurturing, guiding, mentoring, and educating the project to spit out content that you like.
Awesome. Well, let's talk more about that iteration or that feedback piece. So you just gave us an example where you created some content that was more aligned with your tone of voice. Talk to us a bit about your process of understanding what is good and what is not, and how you're making sure that it's actually usable, and what kind of process is there for editing or adjusting off the back of creating that first draft that you just got there.
That's a great question. My rule of thumb with anything that comes to company-wide messaging is that you should be testing that messaging on actual customers, because ultimately, no matter how much you love the messaging, if your customers don't get it or don't love it, then it doesn't really matter. So I would recommend testing, like if you've done positioning testing or messaging, or you've got a series of ads that you've run, and that has significantly had uplift in comparison to other ones, upload those documents here. I've run a lot of positioning tests historically, and I would upload that feedback here so it knows what you like, what you dislike. All of what you like and what you dislike comes back to your tone of voice. It's not a matter of necessarily what I personally like. It's about what's in line with the brand. So does it sound like it's accessible? Does it sound like it really radiates our company values? Does it actually explain the product in a way that appeals to product growth, product design, and product management folks? Those types of things are what I am scrutinizing the output to make sure that it's on brand as well. And in the sort of like what not to do, which I think is just as important as what to do, you can put examples of your competitors and be like, do not write like this. Like, I don't want to sound anything like this. I want to be differentiated, synthesize what they do and how they speak, and upload that so that you make sure that you are having that differentiated tone of voice and messaging in market as you're writing. Again, I want to just reiterate that this is an assistant to help you sort of steer your writing. I, again, wouldn't get it to write everything from scratch from me because an LLM is an aggregate of everything on the internet. You want something to stand out. So I think you need your human brain to create something and then get some steering from the assistant.
So it's your decision if that opinion is valid or not, because often it will just do its best, but it doesn't actually have a real human perspective. It's just trying to imitate that. So having that level of, okay, does this feel right to me? That level of taste or discernment is going to become more and more important for marketers working with AI.
Definitely. So that's how I would set up the brand tone of voice project and iterate on it over time. And I would highly encourage you to run an enablement session with the folks on your marketing team or whoever's going to be using this so they know how to use it and how it's been created and what to use it for. But once you've had that session, I really feel like it will help all people that are writing copy to really stay on brand and to really learn more about the brand. Like as you can see here, it's spitting the guidelines back at me and it's kind of challenging my own thinking on things, which is great because, yeah, I'm not necessarily thinking about that all the time. I'm moving fast, doing a lot of different things. So that's how I would recommend setting up a tone of voice project. And I would encourage you to really explore the project's functionality to see how you could use it for sales enablement or competitive analysis or a campaign to have a specific tone of voice. There's so much opportunity for marketers within the Claude's projects. I've created a one-page document that just is a cheat sheet for how to create a project simply, easily, and effectively and how to make the most out of it. So it will cover in just 1 to 2 pages what we have talked about here today and also give you some ideas for how you can use projects for other parts of your marketing experience.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I'll pop the link into the description. Last question is, why do you feel safe adding all of this data into Claude? Because I think a concern that comes up a lot is people are worried about their information getting trained on, giving away personally identifiable information. How do you think about what can go into Claude versus not? And what makes you feel safe putting things into Claude like this?
Yeah, so within the settings of Claude, you can turn off training. So it's not training the model. So I always have that off. I don't want it training the model. And I believe any corporate plans have that by default off. So that means that you're not training the model with this information. I feel safe putting any brand content up in here because it's all publicly available content. Like the website's publicly available, emails are publicly available. Like it's publicly available on brand content. The brand guidelines are also something that's not necessarily like a deep dark secret because you can see the brand guidelines coming to life through these different content touch points. And actually, a lot of companies have their brand guidelines as a public website. So that's why I feel comfortable putting that information in here. Um, I would check in with your company's AI policy to make sure that you stick to and understand what you can and can't upload. Like many companies will let you upload, sales calls. Some companies may not. And you just need to make sure that you are within bounds of those policies within your workplace. And yeah, I would recommend not uploading private data. I wouldn't put people's credit card details in here if for some reason you had that. I wouldn't put like their full passport and all their name, date of birth, everything in here, just because that doesn't feel safe or how you should be at all handling customer data, which is really against your code of ethics and your data security for sure.
Yeah. It will be great when more companies can jump onto this and get involved because as they sit here and don't use it, they're missing out on a lot of the gains that we've been talking about. I'd love to hear about any other cool ways that you think marketers could use projects. Are there any other key examples that you're either building yourself or that you think would be really good?
Yeah, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I have set up a go-to-market thought partner, which is uploading different go-to-market strategies I've found through blogs, Medium articles, different Substacks, things like that, uploading that into here. I've created a product growth expert one, which is sort of our core ICP audience, where I upload insights, information, and key knowledge of what a product growth manager is into this, and I use that to sort of stress test my own ideas. I have different tones of voice. You can create like thought partners for sales enablement. So if you wanted to educate everyone on your product and you had a large team that you needed to enable, you could create a product centric project where you upload or connect your help center, upload all of your training videos or information, and then that can become a chat bot that people can talk to if they have questions about the product.
Yeah, awesome. That's amazing. I'm shaking my head here because I feel like these use cases are so smart, and I just want to build endless different projects. I think with AI, it's often figuring out what is actually going to be the highest leverage, because you can build projects all day, but yeah, having something that you can talk to and support your team and that the team's actually adopting and getting value, I think that's the hard part. So yeah, I think you found some really good examples with that.
Yeah, and I'm excited to continue testing them. So I'd love to hear other ideas that listeners may have.
Cool. So we've seen your workflow, and I'd love to zoom out a little bit and chat about the bigger picture. So what this means for marketers. You mentioned earlier that can be overwhelming for marketers who might have a lot on their plate already. What would you tell someone who's listening to this right now and thinking, this sounds great, but I don't have 20 hours to learn how to use this new tool? What is the minimum viable version of that they can get started with?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can feel a little bit overwhelming. I myself have been overwhelmed sometimes and feel like I really need to jump on all these tools and continuously learn. And I think you can learn, but in an incremental way. I would recommend starting like small, like actually creating a project doesn't take a ton of time. You can see pretty quick results off the back of that, and you can test it in a variety of different ways before needing to buy a multitude of different tools and kind of expand. So I would recommend starting small. Start with a key pain point. Like, what is something that is repetitive and tedious and takes a lot of your time? Repetition is where AI can really help. If it's lead scoring, how could HubSpot or my existing CRM use all of them have AI in it? How could they help there? Look at that, talk to Claude, talk to ChatGPT, see how you could solve that. Just start with smaller, repetitive tasks that are causing you problems and iterate out from there. And then you might start to build more elaborate systems. But I think honestly, a lot of the value is from, a lot of small, quick wins compounding with the AI.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so happy to have you on the show, and I think people will get so much value from this. You're a great example of why companies and marketers should invest in learning this stuff. Where can people find you, and how can they be helpful to you?
Well, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to hear or connect with you if this resonates with you and something that you're trying. I'd love to hear your wins and how you're using Claude projects. And I am using AI agents, but I feel like that's an area where I'm scratching the surface. There's a lot more. So if there's any experts on AI agents that would be willing to help teach me how to automate some parts of go-to-market, I would be all ears.
I think we're all hungry for use cases. So yeah, that's why I'm building Intelligent Growth, to introduce other marketers to each other, to create a community around sharing and use cases. So yeah, thanks for sharing yours. And it's been so great to have you on today, Charlotte. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks so much, Will.
Cool. See you soon. All right, so Charlotte created a step-by-step guide for this whole process. I'll share it in my newsletter with all the templates, and you can find that in the link in the description. So here's what you can do next. Build your own project this week. It'll take you under an hour and it will save you a lot of time in the long run. And if you're already using Claude for marketing, please drop a comment, and I'd love to hear about what you're building. If you want to show a workflow on the show, go ahead and message me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also find this in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Ratings and reviews will really help other people find the show. And you can check out willmulholland.com for all the episodes and resources. See you next time.